Today, we're going to be talking about players that are set to have a breakout over the last 5 games of the season for the Washington Commanders. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and follow the channel as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football daily. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it as we're talking about players that I think are set to have a breakout over the last 5 games of the season for the Washington Commanders. And so starting with Jayden Daniels, I think that Jayden Daniels is poised to have a breakout over these last 5 games. And that's assuming that he gets back against the Minnesota Vikings. And so just to be clear, there is no injury update around him. I think the last thing that Dan Quinn talked about with him is that they're going to take it right up until Friday. And really, they're still trying to figure some things out as far as the functional movement for him. And so that means like stiff arms and, having to dive on the ground, stuff like that. And so we'll find out a little bit closer, to the game if Jayden Daniels is going to be out there. But assuming that he is going to be out there for the Vikings, I think that he's set to really have a big last 5 games of the season, because if you got a chance to look at that game versus the Denver Broncos, I think that as a fan, this is exactly what we wanted to see from this offense. We wanted to see a team that was able to lean in on the run. You were able to create space for your playmakers in the passing game, and you were able to really get creative. I love the fact that with Cliff Kingsbury and this offensive scheme in this last game, look, a lot of short passes, intermediate stuff to really, go against, a strong pass rush from the Denver Broncos, and it wore them down. And I think that if you can really bring that same type of play style out here with this healthy offense, you add your franchise quarterback, I think that Jayden Daniels is set to really make some huge plays down the stretch. And so, look, we already know that he is the franchise quarterback. Look, he doesn't need to prove anything, but I do think that him coming back with Terry McLaurin, who was great in this game against the Denver Broncos with those 9 receptions for 96 yards. And that was with him being on like a little bit of a pitch count out there. And so that's with them trying to hold him back with the snaps and stuff like that. And so from what I understand, it doesn't look like that there was any type of setbacks with Terry McLaurin. And so I would expect for him to probably get some more snaps moving forward. And so that really suggests that you pair that with your franchise quarterback, these guys are going to be making some highlights out there. I think that the offensive line has done a great job. It's all about Jayden Daniels staying healthy down the stretch. And so I think that he's poised to really make some plays for this team down the stretch. And so next, sticking with this offense and just some of the other players that I think are really set to really have a breakout over the last 5 games, I think that you can go ahead and you can look at the wide receivers some more. And I think that a guy like Treylon Burks, he's set to really have a breakout down the stretch. And this kind of goes into what I was talking about before the Miami Dolphins game. And so if you got a chance to see that, I was like, look, you don't have Terry McLaurin, you don't have Noah Brown. Here's a guy that was a former first-round pick. He was, he was drafted to go ahead and replace A.J. Brown. It didn't work out with the Tennessee Titans, but he certainly has the skill set. And it was just really about him being available. And I felt like, look, if he was available on the field, he was certainly going to get some opportunities. And that's exactly what Marcus Mariota has done. He's thrown the football to him. I know he didn't have that many catches against the Denver Broncos, but it wasn't because the Commanders weren't going to him. And I get it, some games it's going to be a lot better than others, but I do think that if you continue to lean in on Treylon Burks, he's going to be able to make some plays. This is a guy that he can be physical, and use his height as far as getting over top of corners. He also has speed as well. He's shown that he has very good catch radius as well. And so you would definitely think that once Jayden Daniels comes back, he is going to be throwing him some dimes. And so I think that Treylon Burks has a chance to really make some plays down the stretch for the Washington Commanders. And I'll say this, look, even if he's not back with the Washington Commanders next season, I do think that he is going to play himself into a major role in the National Football League next season. I think that there's that many opportunities for him. I don't know what's going to happen with Noah Brown coming back. We don't know if he's going to be, on a pitch count as far as the snaps and stuff like that. But right now, Treylon Burks has been hot. And I think that you would have saw that had he not had to get the surgery on his finger and missed that Dolphins game. And so very impressed with him. I think that he's set to make some plays down the stretch. I also think a guy like Jalen Lane, look, this is where he needs to step up here in his rookie season. He's going to have the opportunities. Look, now that Terry McLaurin is back, now that you have Deebo Samuel back, now that you're probably going to start to see a lot of what we saw last year with this offense and Zach Ertz and everything else, defenses are going to try to take that away, especially, for these teams that are really playing for something. This is where a guy like Jaylen Lane can step up. He's not necessarily on the scouting report. He's a rookie. And so I think that there's a ton of opportunity for him to really eat as far as over the middle of the field. And also, too, I think that there is the chance for him to get behind the secondary here and use that speed. And so hopefully, Jaylen Lane can make these plays down the stretch. I think that there's an opportunity for him. I know he struggled a bit with the kick returns because he has, muffed some of these things. And so I would like to see him clean it up, but he's going to have a chance to really, I think do some things here because there's nobody else in front of him really. You don't have Luke McCaffrey out there. And again, I think that there is opportunity, especially when you're going to start to see the attention from Terry McLaurin and all these other guys. And so he's another guy, I think, down the stretch who could really be an impact for the Washington Commanders. Next, the running game. And so, look, the running game has been a bright spot here for the Washington Commanders. And I know that we haven't heard a lot from Bill lately, but he's already shown early on in the season that he can certainly get it done. Now, I think that he needs to get a little bit more back on track. I do like the fact that he's still getting carries. I do also like the fact that he's not necessarily leading the backfield, but I think it's important for him to stay in the mix, especially if you're looking to go ahead and maybe have a backfield with Chris Rodriguez Jr. and then also, too, with Bill next season. You want to make sure that the confidence is there. You want to make sure that he gets as many reps as possible. And the way that the offensive line has worked really throughout this season and the way that they've called the games and stuff like that, they're doing a great job as far as moving the football. And so I think that for him, he's got to get some more carries down the stretch. He has a chance, I think, to really use some of his playmaking ability and just kind of make some noise here. And also, too, Chris Rodriguez Jr., look, I think that he's done a terrific job. I think that he's shown that he can be a lead back in the National Football League. And I would say this, look, if the Washington Commanders didn't hold on to him, I do think that there are certainly other teams that are probably interested. But with Chris Rodriguez Jr., look, I think that you have to hold on to him, especially since you went ahead and you made that move to get rid of Brian Robinson Jr. And so I think that now is the time that you go ahead and you lean in on him and see what he can do down the stretch, because I love the power that he's giving you. I love the fact that he's finding the end zone as well. I think that another kind of aspect that I would like to see in his game is his ability to come out the backfield. And I think he's eager to show that as well, because if he can do that, you're starting to show that you're a complete back. You can come out of the backfield, you can catch the football, and also, too, if you can pick up the blitz and stuff like that, which is going to be huge in this offense, you have to be able to protect the franchise quarterback. And so if you can do all those things like that, you certainly are going to have a place, I think, on this football team. And so hopefully Chris Rodriguez Jr. gets a chance to show that. And lastly, defensively, some of the players that I think are set to really have a breakout down the stretch starts with Jordan McGee. I liked what I saw from Jordan McGee out there in this last game against the Denver Broncos. And really, I think what I'm liking what I'm seeing in spots as well. And I think that because Dan Quinn is taking over as the defensive coordinator now, he's going to give him some opportunities with the blitzes and things like that. And he's also going to give him a chance now to be in the middle of that defense, maybe make some of the calls and checks out there with Bobby Wagner. I think that that's going to be huge, especially when you're talking about building the foundation of your football team. Remember, Dan Quinn has talked about it. Look, they have got to find a way to really balance two timelines. You want to compete, but you also need to grow your younger players. And so Jordan McGee, if he's healthy, he needs to play. And the way that this defense is playing over the last couple of weeks, I cannot wait to see what they're going to do against the Minnesota Vikings. And then also, too, they've got some games coming up against some divisional opponents. And whenever you're talking about like divisional games, those are tough games, all right? Like, so when you're talking about playing the Eagles, you're talking about the Cowboys and the Eagles and the Giants, like, you can throw the records out the window. I think that that's going to be a physical football game, and it is going to come down to some stops. And so perhaps he's able to make some for this team. Next, I think another player that could certainly be an impact for us was Mikey Samerstiel. And so with Mikey Samerstiel, what I loved about his game against the Denver Broncos especially is he was coming up and he was hitting. And I think with Mikey Samerstiel, I think he has a chance to really go out and get some more interceptions. I think that Bobby Wagner's doing a great job as far as getting interceptions, but I think outside of him, the next guy that could possibly get turnovers, I think it's Mikey Sainristil. And so hopefully Mikey Sainristil down the stretch is able to turn it around for this defense, which is something they desperately have been looking for. They're trying to get, turnovers and things like that. But Mikey Sainristil, he looks like he's kind of taking it to the next kind of level here over the last couple games. I want to see what he's going to do down the stretch in these 5 games left for the Washington Commanders. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here, what other players do you think are set to really have a breakout down the last 5 games of the season? Like I said, you got the Dallas Cowboys, you got the Eagles coming up, you got the you got the Vikings, you got the Eagles, you got the Cowboys coming up, and the Giants. And so some very physical football games coming up here. Again, I like Mikey Sainristil. I like Jordan McGee on the defensive side of the ball. I like just our wide receivers here that could step up in Jalen Lane and Treylon Burks. I also think some of these players that have been hurt are going to step up. And so I think a guy like Terry McLaurin is going to step up, perhaps Noah Brown. I certainly think that Jayden Daniels, now that he has the offense that he, thought he was going to have early on, and everybody's starting to get some on-field work now, that I think that he could possibly hit the ground running and really get into a rhythm over these last 5 games, which is what you want if you're going to play him. You want him to develop, and this is a perfect opportunity for him to develop. You're also talking about building up your standards moving forward, so this could be a huge opportunity for him. With the running game, look, I think that both of these backs certainly can have a chance to really make a stretch run down the last part of the season. But, also too, one of the things I didn't talk about is the offensive line is getting it done. I think that Josh Connolly Jr. quietly has done a great job. And so I think he has a chance to really add some more to his rookie season, especially going against a tough Vikings defense. And so can he hold up against them? And then also too, can they continue to be, a top 10 unit in the National Football League as far as running the ball? I think that is huge, because when you're talking about dominating the line of scrimmage, I don't care, who you have at quarterback or whatever the case may be. Like, you want to have that type of identity. You want to be able to go out there, line up, move defenses out of the way, and get to where you need to get to, because I always feel like by having that type of game, it's going to open it up for your entire football team. And I also think too, your defense feeds off that as well, because it is all about dominating the line of scrimmage. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And look, as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.